Welcome to another edition of Currently in Quincy. I'm Joe Catalano, and on today's program, we get to meet the director of the Massachusetts State Lottery. Mark William Bracken from Quincy is joining us later on. First, though, we take a look at the weather and the news for you currently in Quincy. Mighty muggy out there. It's a hazy 85 degrees already. Could see a spot storm around this afternoon. Highs will top off in the upper 80s. Feeling like the low 90s, though, with that humidity. Another oppressive night tonight. Temperatures only in the lower 70s. We start an unsettled weather pattern tomorrow. A chance for some storms in the afternoon. Still pretty humid with highs tomorrow into the mid 80s. A better chance for storms on Sunday with the high around 80 degrees. And it looks like everybody gets wet on Monday with off and on thunderstorms throughout the day. Highs Monday into the still muggy mid 70s. Again, hazy sunshine, 85 degrees in Quincy right now. Checking news for you today, City of Quincy is preparing to officially open the new Dr. Rick DeCristofaro Early Learning Center, which will provide specialized education for students with learning disabilities and autism. A ribbon-cutting ceremony is scheduled for October 22nd, and students in grades K through 8 will begin attending classes there early next year. Mayor Thomas Koch says eventually the new center could also provide education for students outside of Quincy.
Well, that's a possibility if we have room. First and foremost, I'm concerned about our kids, to make sure we're taking care of our kids, but after that, if we have room, we could then take in other kids from other cities and towns with a tuition, of course. City and town would pay the tuition toward it, so wouldn't be borne on the taxpayers of Quincy. But having said that, we've nearly half of the cost of that building we spent with ARPA money. So, that's federal money through the state, through the county that we're able to use for the project. So it wasn't just Quincy taxpayer dollars spent on the building.
City purchased the building on Old Colony Avenue from Eastern Nazarene College for $6.8 million, spent another $14 million renovating the building to accommodate the new learning center. The next phase of the C Street Improvement Project in Quincy will be getting underway next spring. Now that the city has approved several land takings needed for the project, the City Council, meeting remotely in a special session this week, unanimously approved 19 land takings and agreed to compensate the affected property owners a total of $1.13 million for those takings. City Council President Noel DeBona says the land takings are required to comply with state and federal guidelines for that improvement project.
There are some area on the sidewalks which will have to be moved just for the easements. Some will be permanent and some will be temporary for the future. These are much needed. As you know, this will be from the Ginger Betty's all the way up to the Palmer Street. We have already started this project over the last few years. Where they made the right-hand turn coming from C Street onto Quincy Shore Drive, which was huge. You don't have to wait like 2 or 3 cars. You can actually now go at 6 or 7 cars out, so you can take the right-hand turn. Keeps the traffic flow going. This is the next phase of the project, which is very important for C Street. As you know, it's very dangerous over there. They need to get onto some of the sidewalks and give it a little bit more width on the street, as well as the sidewalks.
As DeBona said, some of those land takings are temporary, some are permanent, some are simply needed for overhead wires. The project will make improvements for motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists between Ginger Betty's Bakery and the Adams Shore branch of the Thomas Crane Library. The work will be getting underway in the spring. A community meeting will be held next week regarding the state's new Welcome Center for Migrants at Eastern Nazarene College in Quincy. Quincy Mayor Thomas Koch and Ward 5 Councilor Chuck Phelan have announced the meeting will be held next Tuesday, 6:30, in the auditorium of the Central Middle School. City officials asked the state for that meeting to answer questions about how the Welcome Center could impact city services, particularly the school system. ENC's Vice President William McCoy says the Welcome Center is being run by specialized organizations.
It's important to emphasize that the shelter that's available on our campus is specifically for families. Mostly this means mothers who are either pregnant or who have young children, as well as fathers, but family units, children involved, and that's so. When an individual or a family arrives at the Family Welcome Center, Baystate does the initial screening to determine, are you eligible for the sheltering program here, or do we need to connect you to other resources? And sometimes that's an organization like Father Bill's, another community organization with a long history here in Quincy. And sometimes that's other resources. And so they manage that process at the kind of initial screening.
The Welcome Center at ENC is housing 58 families and is the second Welcome Center to help deal with the migrant crisis in Massachusetts. Officials from the state and ENC will be attending next Tuesday's community meeting. Well, a new bookstore is open at the Thomas Crane Public Library in Quincy Center. Earlier this week, the Friends of the Thomas Crane Library officially opened the new bookstore at the site of the former cafe in the atrium of the main library on Washington Street in Quincy Center. The president of the Friends group, Catherine Lynn, says proceeds from sales at the bookstore will be used to continue the many extra programs, activities, and services at the library.
This marvelous new space, we are sure, is going to bring in more book lovers, allow us to fund more programs, more films, more music presentations, more museum passes, all of which the Friends raises money to support for the library. I want to acknowledge a couple of folks who have helped with this move, in particular Sarah Slyman, the library director, whose idea this was, and a fabulous one it was. And then the head of the bookstore committee is Ann Acton, just here. She really engineered a great deal of this work as well. And the members of the bookstore committee, of course. And I must say, the staff of the library has been wonderful in helping us to engineer this move.
Bookstore relocated from its previous location in the former children's room of the library off of Spear Street. Well, over 800 local children received new backpacks and school supplies from Interfaith Social Services of Quincy to go back to school this year. Every year, Interfaith collects backpacks and school supplies to help children of families that use Interfaith's food pantry and other programs. Interfaith says the backpack donations help ease the financial burden on families and bring joy to children who may be growing up in difficult situations. Volunteers from Arbella Insurance, IntelliCare, Signet Electronics, and some other businesses help to sort and fill the backpacks. Interfaith is now collecting Halloween costumes to distribute to children for trick-or-treating later this year. It's our check of news for you today. Coming up, we chat with the director of the Massachusetts State Lottery. That's next. Welcome back. Did you know that the executive director of the Massachusetts State Lottery is from the city of Quincy? Well, neither did I, but when I found out, I invited him to come on over and tell us a little bit about himself and about the lottery. Mark William Bracken did just that. Nice to meet you, Mr. Bracken.
Likewise, nice to meet you too.
Yeah, a Quincy guy.
Lifelong resident,
Wow.
never left.
No kidding.
Yes, 44 years.
Okay, and going strong.
Yeah, same ward, same precinct my entire life.
Wow. And your family too, as I understand.
Yeah, absolutely. My parents have lived here for close to 50 years.
Wow. Okay, so you have deep roots in the city.
Yeah.
How'd you get involved with the lottery?
So I've been an employee of the Massachusetts State Treasury since 2011.
Oh.
I've worked in state government my whole life.
Okay.
Directly out of law school back in 2004, I went to work for now Speaker Mariano. So I worked for Speaker Mariano for almost 6 years. Did a year over in Governor Patrick's administration, and then when Steve Grossman became treasurer, he invited me on to become the assistant treasurer for the Commonwealth and oversee the state's unclaimed property division. A lot of people know it as findmassmoney.com.
Yes.
So I have done that. I did that for 11 years, and then a year and a half ago, Treasurer Goldberg who's now been in office for 8 years. Treasurer Goldberg asked me to come over to the state lottery and head it up as the executive director. So that's how I landed there.
Okay. Oh, so actually you've been at it for a little bit now. So
Yes.
not that new.
So I served as an intern for about 14
Okay.
months, and then became the official executive director a few months ago.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
How's it been going?
It's great. I
Yeah.
mean, we're breaking records.
Okay.
All across the board. So it's really working out for, I think, everyone.
Could you give us a little history about the lottery in Massachusetts?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
the legislature actually passed the law to initiate the lottery in 1971.
Really?
So last year we just celebrated our 50th anniversary because we did our first drawing in March of 1972.
Okay.
So we just finished up celebrating our 50th anniversary year, and so it started 1972. In 1974, a lot of people don't realize this, Massachusetts actually created the very first ever scratch ticket for a lottery, and that was launched in 1974. And then another thing to note, 1993, we were the very first state to ever launch Keno.
Oh,
Still to this day, we are the largest Keno state in the country. We do over $1 billion a year in sales in Keno. Massachusetts State Lottery is the most successful lottery in the country per capita, and the second most successful lottery in the world, right behind Singapore.
I was just going to ask what the first one was.
Singapore
Okay.
is.
Wow.
So, and then Italy's right after us.
Really?
So, yeah, two very strong lotteries. So, we kind of have a reputation across the country as being the premier lottery.
Okay. Was it the first one in the country? Do you
So
know?
pretty much, so it all depends. First to get implemented, third to do a draw. Everyone kind of fights over, because a lot of there was about a dozen states that all came on board within a 12-month period.
All right. So one of the first.
Yeah, one of the first.
Okay.
We like to say we were the first because our law passed first, but we weren't the first in actual operation. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
Lottery, I mean, last fiscal year, we broke all-time records. Our fiscal year that just closed out, first year ever, we did over $6 billion in sales. That $6 billion in sales equates to $1.175 billion in profit.
Wow.
And when I say profit, we're not a private corporation. So when you're looking at profit at brick and mortar casinos, fantasy sports, online sports betting, all that profit goes directly to the company.
Right.
And the only thing the state realizes is the tax revenue from that, which is not a lot of money. I mean, sports betting, maybe we're talking if they hit $100 million in tax revenue this year. Our profit, that $1.175 billion, is all profit for the Commonwealth.
100%.
And it all goes to municipalities.
Right. Okay.
Our entire profit goes to the 351 cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, obviously there are operating expenses for the
Yep.
lottery. You have a budget that you have to adhere to. You have employees you have to pay, things of that nature. But anything after that goes right back.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we take, our law is very clear on what it says. It says you take all your sales, you subtract out the prizes paid, you subtract out the overhead cost, and then everything else is profit.
Okay.
And I will say, in terms of our overhead costs, we have the smallest overhead costs of any lottery in the country.
Wow.
I say that like I'm proud. I would love more money to be able to spend so we could do some more interesting things. But we're completely appropriated by the legislature, so the legislature decides how much it takes to run the lottery, and then they hand us the chunk of change, and we got to make good with
I
that.
see,
Whereas
okay.
every other state basically pays as a percentage of whatever their sales are. So
I
they have
see.
some flexibility. We don't have a lot of flexibility, but again, we're doing something right because of our success.
In terms of money going back to cities and towns this past year, how does that compare to years past?
Another record this year.
Really?
Highest amount ever returned to the cities and towns. Our fiscal books, even though the fiscal year closes at the end of the June, the books close mid-September because they do all the financial accounting and just making sure everything's correct. But it looks like it's going to be $1.176 billion
Wow.
in profit.
Okay.
And we broke the billion. I think it's 3 out of the last 4 years we've had over $1 billion in profit.
So even during the pandemic years, if you will?
Yeah, even during COVID.
Really?
Yeah, we had really strong showings.
Okay. How do you determine how much money goes to each individual community?
So luckily for us, we're not involved in that process.
Oh.
The legislature came up with, we'll call it an algorithm, an equation. It's years ago. The Department of Revenue controls that equation, so it's set. The two biggest factors is a municipality, city or town's population size and property value.
Okay.
But there are some other factors that go into that. And literally, they take our chunk of change, They put it in the algorithm, and it spits out how much every city and town gets.
I see.
So if we're looking at the city of Quincy,
Yes, let's.
you know, it's a lot of people might think, well, how much you actually get from the lottery?
Yeah.
Since 1972, since
Yeah.
we started, because again, you got to remember, the profit has always gone to cities and towns since inception. Since 1972, the lottery has turned over $442 million to the city of Quincy.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
We've done $32 billion across the entire state since 1972. So of that 32 billion, 442 million has come to the city in Quincy. So that's almost, you know, pretty good chunk of change there for considering, you know,
Well,
Quincy's getting about $1 out of every $7, you know.
The annual budget for the city is like $365 million. So, yeah.
In recent years, we've been doing over $20 million a year to the city in Quincy.
Okay.
FY23, $22.1 million came over to the city of Quincy from the lottery.
And are there any kind of earmarks as to what that money can be spent on by the communities?
So the reason why the cities love this is because it's called unrestricted local aid.
Okay.
It's unrestricted government aid. So the cities and towns get to take this money, and it's not earmarked, it's not set in a line item. The management structure of the city or town, because you know some have managers, some like us here in the city, we have a council.
Mayor,
and
city council, yeah.
They get to decide where to use that money.
Okay.
So it comes in handy. So maybe someone's building a school. You know, you hear from Waltham, the mayor just said, hey, we had an $11 million bill come in from the school, and they took the $7.5 million that they got from us last year to be able to put towards that bill. They use it for building schools. They use it for hiring police, first responders, teachers, fixing roads, doing parks. If you were to ask the mayor or the city council, they'd be able to tell you what they use the money on. So it's something, if you remember, what was it, 6 years ago, we got that almost like 100 inches of snow that winter.
Yeah.
Cities and towns blew through their snow and ice budget.
Yes.
Cities and towns had this money, and that's what they were using this money for, to supplement the snow, the sand and ice budget, the sand and
Plowing.
salts
Yeah.
and plowing budget. So it's really a lifesaver for cities and towns, especially where cities and towns don't want to be raising property values. So there's a vested interest on very many stakeholders.
Yeah.
And city and towns are not the only beneficiary. In the city of Quincy, we have over 150 agents that sell our lottery products. So,
How many are there in total, do you know, in the state?
Right now, we're at around 7,600.
Okay.
Yeah, we were a little bit over 8,000 pre-pandemic, but we lost, about 400.
Some small businesses.
Small
went out.
businesses.
Yeah.
Some restaurants closed down.
Yeah.
There were Keno agents and things like that. But we're picking up new agents every day.
Okay.
So, obviously that's one of our goals, is to expand our agent base.
Yeah, how do you determine who can be an agent? And how does that happen?
Agents, we have a team that goes out to try to locate places that aren't typical agents to see if they're interested in agents. But pretty much, if you want to be an agent, you're coming to us.
Oh, okay.
That's generally what we find. Because let's face it, lottery is one of the most recognizable brands in the Commonwealth. People know things like, everyone knows what Amazon is, Google, but everyone knows what the lottery is. You might not play it, but everyone knows
That's right,
it.
yeah.
If you were to ask 100 people, do you know what the lottery is? Probably all 100 people are going to say yes. So for brand awareness, and everyone knows the benefits, and our agents do get a benefit. Since our inception, we've paid out over $8.5 billion in commissions and bonuses.
B with a B.
With a B,
Okay.
since our inception.
Yeah.
So our agents get 5% on anything they sell.
Okay.
They get 1% on anything they cash. We also run bonuses. We also run special promotions and bonuses where they qualify for additional commissions and bonuses. And then on top of that, if they sell grand prizes, so if they sell $1 million ticket, and agents can only cash up to a ticket up to $600 in the store. Otherwise, then the person has to go to one of our 6 regional offices.
Yes.
If they sell any type of grand prize, if they sell $1 million ticket, they get a $10,000 bonus.
Significant for small business,
And
for sure. Yeah.
We had over $200 million prizes last year. So we're talking, lots of agents are getting these $10,000 bonuses
Yes.
as well.
Yeah. Is there any cost for the agent to be a lottery agent? Do they have to
I
invest
say
anything?
no, but it's like $2 a month. This is, I mean, it's this minimal. It's a technology tax fee. I can't.
Yeah.
But
No, I just didn't know if they had to pay for their scratch
ultimately-
tickets that they
No.
sell or
No,
machines
and,
that they use.
here's the thing.
Okay.
They don't even pay up front. Everything's given to them on
Wow.
commission.
Okay.
So it's, we put the product in their store, they sell it, and then after the book sells through, there's a couple, triggers that happen. Then then it gets swept right out of their account.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Is there any special training required to be a lottery agent?
Not necessarily. There is training. It's not intense. Our machines are not difficult to use.
Yeah,
They're push button. Well, now there's screens, but and luckily there's only so many games you can play, right?
Right.
We only have a handful of draw games. So no, we do have a training center both here in Dorchester at our headquarters and in Worcester for the central part and western part of the state. And we bring agents in and they go through training, but it's a day training, and once once you do it, you know what you're doing.
Okay.
It's only you're pressing the Powerball button, how many draws, how much. And it's
Done.
a go.
Yeah.
So.
And do you need to be, is it 18 or older to?
18 or older to play.
To play,
Yes,
okay.
18 or older to play. And we always stress that.
Yes.
And we always stress, play responsibly.
Right.
We see kind of, it's kind of been an anomaly these last 2 years with all these billion-dollar jackpots.
Yes.
Right? We had never seen that before. And it's not like the odds have changed. The odds haven't changed in six years. And when they changed, they didn't change that much. And, you got all these people going out there and they think, I always say just buy one to be in the chase, because if you buy one or you buy 100, your odds aren't increasing by buying 100 tickets.
No, you have to buy them all, really.
Yeah, and there are other jackpot. We hear stories, and because we're very close with our national association with our colleagues across the country, right? So you hear stories where they'll have our in-state jackpot game is Megabucks, right? But other states have their own in-state jackpot games, and you hear stories where their jackpot gets like really high, say at like $25 million, and someone will come in and buy 12 million combinations.
Wow, really?
And so you kind of see this happen, certain places. You really have to buy that many to really increase your chance.
Right.
So we always tell people to play responsibly.
Sure.
Play within your means. Yes, lottery, it is a gambling thing, but it's also entertainment. It really is. People go out to bars and they sit there and they're having drinks and food or whatever, but they're playing Keno or they're playing Wheel of Luck, on the monitors.
Yeah.
So it's a form of entertainment as well.
Sure. Will I be able to play the lottery online in Massachusetts someday, do you think?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Obviously, Treasurer Goldberg, for the last 8 years, has been pushing hard to bring online lottery. It has passed in previous sessions. It passed the Senate. The House never took it up. This past summer, last summer, summer of 22, Speaker Mariano included it in the House Economic Bill, and that didn't end up moving the economic bill. Once again, Speaker Mariano included in this year's budget. The governor has come out in support of online lottery. The Senate, not so much. So it did not make the final version of the budget. It got left out during conference committee. So we're still pushing forward. We're still advocating for it.
Okay.
Obviously everyone does everything online. Not everything, but everyone does pretty much everything online. And we're just looking to compete with our competitors. You can gamble online. You can play the horses online. You can sports bet online.
Yes.
Players should be able to, we need to meet our players for where they are at. So, there is a concern amongst the retailer base that if you do it online, the retailers aren't going to, completely unfounded.
Okay.
You cannot show me one statistic. Their group associations, the retailers associations, they cannot show one statistic in any state that has online lottery. In fact, it's the exact opposite. Retail sales have increased at a faster pace in states that have online lottery than in states that don't. Because
Really?
what happens is there's this ecosystem that gets created through bonuses and stuff. So it drives players into stores. So it's play $20 online, get a $5 voucher that can only be redeemed at retail.
In store, okay.
And
I
it's
see.
this constant ecosystem of, or you can charge your account, so you can go on online lottery, and sure, you can upload $100 into your account.
Yes.
But if you go into a store and buy the $100 voucher off of them, you get, say, a 20% bonus on it. So you pay the agent the $100. The agent gets his 5% commission, just like you're buying $100 worth of scratch tickets.
Yeah.
And when you get your voucher to upload online, that voucher's worth $120.
Okay.
So it drives people into the stores. So and when I say every state, I mean every state that has this is what the numbers show, and no
Okay.
one can show otherwise. So we're pushing forward. We're hoping to, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's definitely probably a matter of when. But, at some point, we don't want to get left behind. We don't want people, we are the premier. We're like I said, we do over $1 billion a year in profit. Fantasy sports, maybe $100 million. for the state. So, at some point, and I think that's what, and I think the Senate realizes this too, but to the Senate's, credit, thank you. Senate's credit, they want to make sure we're doing it right.
Yeah.
They have concerns about, data protection and fraud and all that.
Sure.
And, we're on board with that.
Speaking of fraud, we only have about a minute left,
Yeah.
but is it a good idea to sign your lottery ticket once you get it?
Absolutely.
Really?
Sign the back
Okay.
of your ticket.
Okay.
There's a spot there to put your
Yep.
name, address. Even if you do sign a ticket, doesn't mean it's necessarily yours. Something, shady could have happened. But
Okay.
that's the number one easiest way to protect yourself. Sign an address on the back of the ticket. So it's at least identifiable that you're, involved with that ticket.
Okay. All right. Really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, and please come by again. You're right in Quincy.
Yes, right up the street.
We put the website up for the lottery for folks to get more information, or they can certainly stop by your office in Dorchester, right?
Yep,
Get some more
Dorchester
information.
and Braintree.
And Braintree as well. All right. Good to meet you, and thanks for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You are very welcome. Just enough time to check the forecast for you for the rest of the day today. Kind of what you see is what you get. It is summer-like for sure. Temperatures up around 90. Maybe a spot storm. There's a better chance for storms over the weekend. Tomorrow, not quite as hot, but still pretty humid. Looks like everybody gets wet here on Sunday with off and on storms throughout the day, and really unsettled into the early part of next week, too. Thanks again going out to Mark William Bracken for joining us from the Massachusetts State Lottery. Thanks to our crew. Thank you for watching. Monday here on the show, we get an update on the North Quincy cable replacement project from folks at National Grid. Meantime, check our website, qatv.org. You'll find our latest programs, news and information, video on demand, live streaming, and more. For all of us here at QATV, I'm Joe Catalano. Have a great weekend.